Today we're going to be looking at Brandenburg as a very good nation to learn the game on. This is personally how I learned the game. I'm going to give you guys a beginner-friendly guide and hopefully some habits that you'll want to build that will help you as you play EU4. We're going to be playing on normal, so I want to show you the consequences of certain actions that you can make. And before you jump into it, I'm trying to hit 20k subs this summer. I'm trying to make this a full-time job. If you guys would like to support that, a subscription would be amazing. But let's get into the gameplay. One of the biggest factors within the HRE is going to be aggressive expansion, so I'm going to try to give you guys the best way to deal with that. We're going to be keeping it simple. We're not going to be going for any type of dismantle or the inheritance. If you don't know what those things mean, that doesn't really matter. We're not going to be covering them today. You want to be allied to the Emperor straight away, so I'd recommend getting a royal marriage, and that just kind of gives you the diplomatic slot later, and you'll be able to get the alliance there shortly. I also recommend allying to Poland. You won't be able to ally day one, but again, just go ahead and royal marry. And select your units, just build up to force limit. Generally, I just like to add infantry as they're kind of cheaper. And we can do our states briefly here. I like to do all three of the mana privileges for these guys. And for the rest of your privileges, I just like to get the equilibrium above 50, so that way you can seize land without rebels, because if you seize land below 50% loyalty, then you'll get rebels. So I usually just grant things like oversight. Oversight doesn't really do anything. It just gives 10 loyalty, 10 influence, so you're just kind of just trying to get that loyalty above. And then I like the religious diplomats because it gives you extra opinion and diplo rep, so that's just handy. And then it also gets that equilibrium. For the nobility, I like to do supremacy over the crown. I like supremacy over the crown. This basically gives oversight to all three states, essentially, because it gives you plus 10 loyalty and influence. So that'll put the clergy up to 54, so that's kind of that number we're shooting for. And for the nobility, you can see we're at 49%, so we're going to want one more. I like increased levies, but basically anything that gives you above that 50% equilibrium, it's totally fine. And same thing for the burghers. We're going to want to do patronage of the arts because that gives you some prestige and it gives you that loyalty. But you can see we're only at 48%, so we want to do one more. And I like to do free enterprise. Again, free enterprise is just a 10%, 10%. Doesn't really do anything. Let me go ahead and seize land. And we always want to seize land on cooldown. But before we seize land, we want to make sure our loyalties are up. You can also do summon the diet. Pick whatever option is best for you. And one thing to know is if you do give away increased levies, they are immune to seize land. So basically, you don't have to worry about the loyalty of the nobility being above 50 if you have that privilege. But that comes with the consequence that you can't seize their land. However, that shouldn't be a problem. The first focus should be a humiliate war, because you're trying to get this justified wars gives you negative aggressive expansion pack, because in this region, aggressive expansion is a huge deal because of the HRE mechanic that adds to 50%. So you're going to want to try to get this AE mod as soon as possible. And the way that works is just the more of these objectives you have done, the faster that happens. For me, a very easy objective to do would be humiliate a rival. So we're going to be focusing on that. You can't declare war until December 11th, so you don't want to rival anybody straight away because they'll see that and then they might get allies because they're afraid of you. And our starting ruler is 332 and our heir is pretty bad, so a good idea is to put your heir in the army as it increases the chance they will die. So I missed September 11th by a few days, but not a big deal. Let's actually grab the alliance with Poland. And we'll need to improve relations with Austria, so we can kind of do that. We'll wait until our diplomat comes back, and then we're kind of just going to look for the easiest option for rivals, so we can kind of click, on the box for rivals and think, okay, what would be an easy fight? So for me, it's going to be like Stettin. He's obviously only has two provinces, so we're just going to look at who are his allies. We don't really want to fight the Teutons, so that would be a bad option. So we're just going to kind of look through. So kind of just look through the list, like, okay, how about Magdeburg? Okay, they have no allies. That's beautiful. So we're going to go rival them. And you won't get the CB until the month ticks. So one little trick you guys can do is just send an embargo to somebody random you don't care about. Let's say Plomekin. So I can go ahead and just issue embargo. And that's going to let the game refresh. We need to grab our diplomat. But now we could just, instead of waiting the month tick, we can wait just a few more days. Perhaps I shouldn't have picked someone so far away. I was kind of just trying to demonstrate the point. At any rate, Magdeburg still has no allies. So this is going to be an extremely easy humiliate war. And it really doesn't matter who you humiliate. I would just recommend avoiding Wolgas, but basically anybody that it looks like an easy war. It's fine if somebody has like one ally, not a big deal. So we'll go ahead and just declare that war. And it should be pretty straightforward. For this event, the Fate of Newmark, you're going to want to go into your states, go into the burghers and grab indebted to the burghers, and then hit the make the offer. That's going to give you this reclaim Newmark mission complete. And what that does is gives you some claims on these guys, Wolgas, and Stettin as well. And you can start currying favors with Poland once he's your ally. And we also do want to continue to improve with Austria so we get that alliance. We're going to want to go ahead and revoke that embargo. One thing to pay attention to is if Poland gets we need a Jugillion or not. The option will be something like local talent. And that just either means that he gets the PU with Lithuania or he doesn't. I believe 75% of the time or so, he will pick this option. That just means he's going to be a bit stronger of an ally. It's not a huge deal if he doesn't. It's just something to keep in mind. So in this war, it's a humiliate war, so you can't obviously take land, but you want to go ahead and just show strength. That'll give you 100 of each monarch point, but it also completes that objective. So you can see here now we have that done. So that means our splendor is going to go up faster, which means we're going to get this AE impact sooner. So now that's done, we can grab our alliance with Austria. We've been improving relations for a bit, so that worked out pretty good. We're going to want to fight Wolgast next, and sometimes Wolgast can have some nasty alliances. And if he does, you just need to curry favors with Austria and Poland, and eventually they will be able to be called into the war. It just depends on your RNG. In my case, there is only one ally, and that's not a concern. So what we're going to do is just get ready to go to war. Let's go ahead and declare war. We can see we have claims from our mission tree. We're going to go ahead and declare on Wolgast. You can see we have a bunch of claims. And I would recommend checking anytime if you can co-belligerate an enemy. Basically, that allows them to call in their allies, and you might as well check if they have any allies that way, because if they're only allied to each other, you might as well co-belligerate. Because if you don't co-belligerate, it's 50% more expensive to take someone's land. We'll get to that a bit more later. But for this war, we're just going to run over here. He usually hides his guys either here or here. As you can see, we found his guys right where we thought we would. So we managed to completely wipe out his guys. What I would like to do in these scenarios is try to stop the recruitment as much as possible. Of course, we don't have ships, so we can't cross the channel here. We can't the ships are blocking the strait here, so we can't really stop him from recruiting there, but we can stop him from recruiting everywhere else. You can see this guy's kind of poking around, so we want to make sure we pay attention there. What we're going to do basically is get all these provinces without a fort sieged first. I always want to pay attention to what this guy's doing. We can see he's kind of going on ships. Maybe he's going to invade. We kind of just want to keep an eye on it. As long as we're sieging this, we should be good. We just need to make sure the other guy is not going to be an issue, and this guy is not going to cause an issue. We have this guy kind of being annoying over here, and what we can do is just group up our guys, leave one guy on the fort so they can't recruit guys, then head over and let's deal with this guy. Kind of kill him off. So now that we kill off these guys, what we can do is just send guys here and leave one guy there. Then we're going to come back to deal with these guys. What we can do is just hit D, that's for detach and siege, and follow these guys down. These guys are here. We can just kind of wipe them out. And it's just a matter of kind of waiting for our siege to complete now. Again, this won't effectively siege, but it will just prevent them from recruiting troops. And I recommend focusing a lot on prestige. Like if you see an event here, it's money or prestige, definitely take prestige. Prestige is very, very important. If you get a breach here, you can see this kind of icon where the wall's broken. You can look for an assault. My recommendation here would be make sure the garrison is less than 1,000 if you want to do this, because it will be costly. You can see here I lost a good bit of guys and my morale is depleted. And I would recommend do not assault if it's over 1,000. You'll basically just lose the assault and lose a bunch of men. That's not going to be good for anything, but go ahead and wipe these guys out once again. He's probably going to retreat to that province we can't get to. We can just go ahead and send our guys to the other province now. Let's go ahead and just hit the D for the detach and siege, and then we'll kind of deal with his other men that he keeps kind of boating over there. If we check the war progress here, you can see low enthusiasm. That generally means they would peace out of the war. But in this case, I would want to get some prestige. Basically, I want to get some more value. And I recommend you guys do this as well. So again, we have a scenario here. We have a breach. However, we don't want to assault because our full army is not there. But if we want to bring our army over and go for that assault, that would be fine. You can see we're going to take quite a few losses, about 2,000 guys. So it's not necessarily that you always should assault. I just want to show you guys that you can, as long as that garrison's below 1,000. So what I recommend doing for a secondary target like this is you want to make them end rivalries, because this gives you a lot of prestige. So we get 15, and then we can maybe do war reps. We get a total of 17 prestige. Prestige is really important here because it gives you aggressive expansion impact, and it also gives you improved relations. It's important to pay attention to a couple things in the war screen. You want to look over here at the aggressive expansion impact. So this is 39. So that just kind of means your immediate neighbors are going to have a 39 penalty to aggressive expansion. If that number hits 50, you're going to start getting coalitions, and that can cause some issues. And we'll kind of get to that in a moment. But it's an important thing to note. The aggressive expansion given from prestige basically makes this number worse. So for example, let's go ahead and use a cheat that does prestige negative 100. So if I had negative 100 prestige and I tried to end this war, you can see it's now at 43.1 AE. We'll go ahead and add that back because that's what it was before. And you can see that goes to 39. So it is very important to think about prestige. So we're going to take colonization from this guy. And I would always recommend shift left click on the money at the end of the war, just so you might as well. Never really made a lot of sense to me why you can do this and doesn't really cause any issues. Like the people aren't like more upset that they got conquered because you took their money or anything. It's just kind of weird. But maybe someone can explain that in the comments why that makes any sense. Anyhow, that should complete a mission here, a show of strength, as well as the Pomeranian succession. This unlocks a special privilege that you can apply. It's going to be consolidate noble contracts. This just does some core creation costs, so it's less expensive to core things. before we core, we can lower our war exhaustion because that does influence the price. You don't really need to. It's just something to keep in mind. So with that out of the way, the next war we need to do is the Danzig Koenigsberg scenario. The reason we want to push for this war sooner than later is because later on there's going to be an event where Poland will get them in 1460 if we don't. And then it's going to be more difficult because our eventual goal generally is to form Prussia because they're super strong, formable, and you do need Koenigsberg from them. So if you don't get Koenigsberg by 1460, it's just going to be a bit of a pain because now you have to fight Poland, which is a much harder task. If we're at the month thick, we should have claims on these guys. You can see here. And right now we don't have enough favors. You can see little shine favors. Also, he has a truce going until 49, just a few more months. So let's just continue to try to get favors. And of course, we're going to look who's allied to see what we're dealing with. He has quite a few allies, so we might need to curry favors with Austria a bit longer than normal. And I wanted to quickly demonstrate unlawful territory. If we're allied to the Emperor, we're not going to get unlawful territory, but I wanted to show you guys what that might look like. So I'll make a quick save. So if I broke my alliance with Austria here, just to kind of demonstrate the concept here, I'm going to get this demand unlawful territory since we're no longer allied. And what's going to happen here is he's going to demand that I give a province back. So in this case, Wolgast, this province here, because I don't have a core on the province yet. This is going to cause some pretty nasty modifiers in the province, but it's also going to make everyone else have a negative 25 opinion. So everyone else in the HRE, which you can see by the Imperial map mode, is quite a bit. So it's kind of a pretty negative thing. So you either have to lose the province or get a lot of penalties. It also gives the Emperor a claim on you. Although in my case, he usually doesn't go to the war. So we reloaded our save. We are back to being allied to Austria, just to show you guys the concept. So we're looking to go to this war next with the Teutons. We need to declare this before 1460. And what you'll want to do before you declare this war is right-click on Poland and go to this diplomatic feedback and see what provinces he wants. So he really wants the red ones, and he'll take them. But the yellow ones he just kind of wants. That's the way I look at it. Like he's like, these would be nice, but he really wants these. So what you want to do is right-click your own nation and click the two ones that he thought were yellow, because he only kind of wants those, if that makes sense. Make sure that you are seizing land on cooldown. Even if there are rebels, it's okay. You're kind of a small nation, so they're pretty easy to track down. Ideally, you'll be able to seize land without the rebels, but sometimes you just have to bite the bullet. However, let's look at this war here. We have a lot of years to declare it. We could wait for Austria to have favors if we're worried about it. However, I don't think that's going to be necessary in my case. Sometimes I'll ally to like Denmark, and then in that case, Austria would definitely be advisable to wait for. But in this case, I'm feeling pretty confident that shouldn't have any issues. I'm gonna make the war goal Danzig because he shouldn't be able to take the war goal from me. And I've set Koenigsberg as interest, and he doesn't really want it, as mentioned before, because it's important that we get Danzig and Koenigsberg. We kind of just want to let Poland carry and kind of just do a thing. I guess he's going to unsiege that. That's fine. And you can see sometimes you'll make a mistake and you'll actually fight, maybe get reinforced. It's okay, but you want to try to not lose your army. But sometimes I have been known to lose my army in the war. It's not usually a big deal though, because Poland's much bigger and he'll carry you. We might as well grab our tech here for the innovativeness here as well. Mill 4 is a huge advantage. You gotta be careful when you're fighting early game, because if someone hits Mill 4 before you, it's really scary. Just something to keep in mind. We are at a manpower here, so we're not really gonna be able to do a lot here. And I've thoroughly thrown away my men, which you guys shouldn't do. But now we're just gonna go hide in the middle of Poland. Now, if we were worried about this war, we could mercenary up. That'd be an option, but I really am not too concerned. I'll just sneak my troops back in. Of course, I don't have manpower, but it's not a huge deal. And when you get an event like this, I always recommend losing the stability. You don't want to lose Gov progress. But we do want to try to keep our stability at +1 if possible, lower our war exhaustion a little bit. And we don't really need advisors at the start because we can't really afford them. If you're comfortable with that, then you should have advisors, but that's totally up to you. For this guy, we're not going to use advisors unless we can comfortably afford them. If anyone wanted to leave the war, we'd be more than happy to let them. Right now, that's not the case. So you can see the voting order here has low enthusiasm, so we can just white piece that. What you can do oftentimes late in a war is just try to sneak to someone's capital to get them out of the war. You can see we're fully sieged, which is kind of bad. I didn't fight this war very optimally, but I think that's kind of good to show you guys like what it might look like. Like I didn't wait to call in Austria, so there's a consequence of that. And we also fought poorly and aren't really mercenarying up. But we can just go ahead and white piece that guy because we kind of stood on his capital. We can do the same thing with the other targets in the war. So we have Luenberg, which is over here, and we're gonna go walk to his capital. He's being a bit stubborn himself, but that's okay. We can try with Mecklenburg as well. So let's just walk to his capital. Usually an ongoing battle will make it so he doesn't want to leave, but now Mecklenburg was more than happy to just go home. And Luenberg is just getting killed, so he'll probably want to leave relatively soon. There we go, white piece. Now we just have the main war guy. Probably want to get Berlin back, kind of canned at the moment. We're probably getting a lot of war exhaustion from the way we're fighting this, so again, I'm definitely not fighting this optimally, but that is more than okay. I feel like it'd be better to show you guys an unoptimal version than me playing optimally, because the reality is if you're a newer player, you're probably making the same mistakes I'm making here. So for this war, we want Koenigsberg and Danzig. And whatever else we can get is probably good. Though remember that if you take extra land, you're going to piss off Poland. He probably won't break alliance with you for just taking Danzig, but if you take more than that, he definitely will. And there's still a chance he'll break alliance with you just for Danzig because he really wants it. So I'm going to take these two provinces, but yeah, I could take more if I wanted to. I just don't want to lose that alliance with Poland. You can see Poland doesn't really like me at the moment. He might break alliance with me anyways. We can try to improve relations with him, and maybe we'll send an insult to the Ottomans. But there's a good chance that we'll lose that alliance because we took Danzig. We'll just have to see. It's not a big deal if Poland breaks alliance either way. You kind of got the use out of him. That one war is the most important reason to have him. Since I have no manpower at the moment, what I'm going to do is just consolidate. So I'm only have less guys, and then we're just going to probably hire the free company for now. I don't love using mercs, but I know I have a lot of rebels on the way, and I'm going to need some extra men to deal with those. So you can see that alliance is breaking. We can still try to improve with Poland. We might be able to get that alliance back at a later point. It's just right now it's not going to work, but let's go ahead and core those up. So you can see Poland did break his alliance with us. We can improve relations and maybe get that back later. Something to consider. Let's make sure we full state things here and just go ahead and full state those. One thing I recommend doing from time to time is just go ahead and decrease autonomy. This is going to cause rebels, but it's going to basically give you more value out of the provinces. We've got what we need to form Prussia now, which is pretty ideal. So we'll keep getting our tech up. So we're just going to kind of keep an eye on our rebels. Once we're out of debt, we'll probably consider some advisors. We're just kind of going through in full state, and every time you state something, that generally means you can lower autonomy after the month tick. Go ahead and do that. We just want to keep an eye on these guys. We just want to make sure that we keep an eye on these guys. Generally, when the rebel icon turns red, that's when you know you kind of really need to pay attention. This event here, I generally will just listen to the people because we can just wait to build buildings until our ruler dies. That's totally up to you. And we could throw our ruler in the army to make him more likely to die. Let's just go ahead and seize land again. We unfortunately don't have the equilibrium once again because maybe we got some bad events, but it was a-okay. Let's go ahead and set some rivals though. Bohemia is fine. We'll also rival the Teutons. It looks fine. From here, it's going to be, depending on your game, kind of what wars you can do. But you kind of just want to go around and look. Go around to every one and be like, okay, what's the easiest possible war for me to do? So just go into the war screen. Okay, this one looks pretty easy. Okay, I don't want to co-belligerate that guy because that's going to cost me a lot more. I would highly recommend a coalition map mode. It's one of your options to add, and I'll show you guys how to add that real quick if you guys don't know. Just click the empty box and then add another map mode. Scroll down until you see the coalition one, and then you can kind of just click that, and you can kind of click this here, and you can kind of hover over the areas and see what we're looking at. Remember that 50 equals coalition, so as long as most people aren't there, you're okay. But you also want to make sure you're not at 0 AE because this ticks down, so you're kind of wasting potential growth if you're at 0 and you're basically not ticking down. Of course, you can just hit Q on our map, and that should do our diplomatic map, and that'll show us where we have claims. If we want to declare someone that we don't have claims on, that's fine. We just need to fabricate on them. That should be a problem. But let's focus on what we have claims on for now. So both Magdeburg and Anhalt look relatively easy. We can do either one of those wars. But before we go to a war, we want to make sure our rebels are not about to pop. And in our case, they are. So we're actually going to wait. What we can do here as well is just going to provoke some rebels. So let's go over here and just stand there and then provoke. That way the rebels aren't going to pop mid-war. We don't always want to provoke. In this case, that'd be like 13 guys. We might just want to wait. So we're just going to wait for these guys to pop. There we go. So these guys popped here. Get rid of those guys. And I'm going to make a save real quick because I want to show you guys the importance of beating rebels before they occupy the land, just to demonstrate that. So for this example, let's just go ahead and provoke these rebels, and I'm going to show you guys what will happen if we let them win. So right now you'll notice that the separatism here is 8.5, and it will decay. It will take until 1475 for that to decay, because it decays at a rate of 0.5 a year. So you can see now that they've won. Separatism won't decay until 1485. So it's super important that you're on top of your rebels, or you're just going to get endless amounts of rebels. So let's reload our game, and we can go ahead and provoke those and actually fight them this time. Again, we're just going to try to deal with these last two groups before we go to any war, because we don't want those rebels popping up mid-war and then getting that separatism, anything like that. So let's go ahead and provoke these guys, and we can finally provoke these guys. All right, so we have no more rebels on the way, and we should be safe to go to war. And from looking around, we can see a war here and a war here. They're both easy, and it doesn't really matter which one we pick. The idea here is just that we just want to expand, become a stronger nation in whichever direction we can. It's not really any particular route that you need to pick. You can roughly try to get the missions done, and that's a good idea, but sometimes it's not really in the cards. Like you'll have really hard alliance blocks or something like that. So try to do the missions, but don't worry about it if you can't. So we'll just declare war on Anhalt. We can always check if we could co-belligerate. In this case, we can't, or we'd be fighting more people than we have, and we don't really want to do that. So we've declared war here, and we're just going to run in. It's always good to try to defeat the first guy before the second guy comes in to help if there's multiple people in the war. So again, I just like to siege out both of the provinces, make sure you can't re-recruit. And here's a pretty nasty event here. You either get a ton of rebels or you piss off the papal states. And it can be risky to piss off the papal states. In this case, I'm probably just going to buy some indulgences because that improves his relation by quite a bit. So you can see he's plus a 110, and then I can pick the option that makes someone happy. If I was in a position to fight the rebels, I would probably do that. But in this case, not in the cards. I can also go and improve relations with him. You don't want that relation to be negative or you can get excommunicated, and that's going to cause further issues. We got a breach here, and again, we can assault if we want. This will cost manpower. Again, guys, totally up to you of what you want to do here. I like to assault if it's doable, but only if it's below 1,000 garrison. So now we can see Mainz has kind of showed up, and then he doesn't really have enough guys to beat us. And we can go over and kind of siege him down. So we've completely destroyed his army, and again, we're just going to make sure we're not letting him re-recruit guys. In this case, we got an unconditional surrender. This is going to cause war exhaustion if we don't end the war. But don't feel threatened by this. It really doesn't do anything until like a year plus. So in my case, I'm just going to continue to siege because I want to get the prestige from this other guy. I'm not really worried about a little bit of war exhaustion. It's going to take a while to build up. So you can see I'm going to go for the annul treaties, that triple end rivalry, and war reps because we want that prestige. Go ahead and grab a diplomat home, and we'll go ahead and do that. And then we're just going to go ahead and grab these provinces here. We can always take a look at the AE. It's going to be 18. We're going to take that money. And over here, we'll show the coalition if there is one, but right now we're kind of chill, so we don't need to worry about it. So that war's done. We're going to core those up. You can see we only got a little bit of war exhaustion, even though there was a call for peace. Doesn't really add up that fast. And for our tier 2 reform, there's a lot of good ones. It just really depends on your situation. Just think of it as, what am I having problems with? Like, do I need more manpower? Do I need a bit more money? Would I like to have cheaper advisors, or would I like to have cheaper staff cost? So it's totally up to you. In my case, we're going to go for the cheaper advisors because I think that could be nice, especially with our nation. We're probably to the point where we could have 4 level 1 advisors and not be losing money. And in 1460, the Shadow King's going to happen. It doesn't really matter to you what this does. One thing I forgot to do is in your government, you'll probably want to accept cultures when you can. So that's just something I sometimes forget. It just makes it so they're not as upset at you. We do want to grab advisors now. You can see our balance is about 4. And if we can afford advisors comfortably, we want to. It's important to get an improved relations advisor, but in this case, it's level 2, and I don't want to pay that much. So I might try to fire this guy, maybe fire all 3 of these guys and see if I can get an improved relations advisor that is cheaper. So we're just going to keep firing level 1 advisor and see if we can get a improved relations. This would be kind of an expensive process, but it's actually really good because improved relations directly impacts your ability to take more land. So we wasted about 100 ducats and we weren't able to find one. So we'll come back to that a bit later. We're going to take a look at our coalition map mode here. You can see that we're kind of getting more green. People are getting a little more upset at us. And the idea here is that you always want to be having that go down. So as long as we're not at 0, we're in a good shape. So we wouldn't feel any need to expand any further at the moment because people are kind of upset with us already. So we kind of just go ahead and turn off our maintenance and mothball our forts and kind of save up some money. We'll keep an eye on our rebels, of course, because right now we have rebels that eventually will spawn. So we'll have to turn on that maintenance a bit later. We can also select a new rival. That's fine. Let's just hang out for a little bit. Let our aggressive expansion cool off. I'm going to go ahead and grab a mill advisor, and we're going to just kind of continue to wait for that improved relations advisor to pop up. And the way improved relations work is that you have this A impact here. And you can see it has a 2.5 yearly. The more improved relations you have, the quicker that yearly is, and I'll show you the difference here in a minute. Seize land is up, so we can go ahead and do that. And of course, mercenaries will always keep their maintenance, so it's fine to do that. And yeah, that looks fine. We're kind of just trying to keep our crown land in a good spot. When you get all the mana privileges early, you're going to have to be really good at seizing land. One thing I'd recommend doing throughout the campaign is go to your menu here and click the diplomacy, and you can go to economic actions and see if you can get knowledge sharing. In my case, I have a couple nations that will do that. That's just going to help with the institution. So we're going to start getting that in Berlin pretty fast. You can see we get probably about 1 a month or so, maybe 1.5 a month. We could actually get the institution now, but we probably want to wait for it to spread to Berlin. And we're going to wait for our institution. We don't want to pay an extra 15% for the Renaissance. We'll just go ahead and get the Renaissance in a bit here. We can go ahead and repay our final loan here and see if we can get that improved relations advisor to show up. That'd be pretty helpful. We had some bad luck with that, but that's there we go. So once we have the money, we can hire that guy. Shouldn't be too long, maybe a month or 2. There we go. So now you can see that 2.5 goes to a 3 yearly, so you're just gonna be able to take more land because of improved relations. So remember to keep that in mind. You're having good prestige is also very important because it has up to plus 50% improved relations. So prestige is kind of like a double that gives you AE impact and improved relations. So very, very important to have good prestige. And since I paid off my burger loans, I can go ahead and take new burger loans and consider getting the institution. Although I do want to wait for it to spread to Berlin still. So maybe I did that a little too soon because that'll be a lot of the, it'll save us a bit of money. We'll wait a few months. And we could try to become the emperor if we want. I just wanted to keep this simple, so we're not going to do that today. So if you wanted to try to get voted for as the emperor, that's something you could consider doing. You'll get some nice bonuses for doing so. And there's mention here that when you have 2 votes, you can go for an extra vote. So something to consider. It's definitely strong to do because you get extra manpower and stuff like that. But I didn't really want to make it too big of a focus for this campaign. So we're just going to try to keep level 1 advisors at all times. The only advisor that I'm really picky on is the improved relations. Other than that, anything else is fine. Of course, morale and discipline are nice, but really it wouldn't be a huge deal. This is a beginning succession, and we didn't go for this, but if you wanted to, you could. But I want to keep it simple. Kind of funny though, Saluso got them, the OPM. Pretty funny. Love to see it. They're probably hyper disloyal, I'm sure. Now, I recommend that you don't take Diplo 5 and that you save your points, like in this case. We are just going to wait for the institution, of course, before we take any of our techs. In my case, Berlin is just a few months away. We're just going to wait for them to get the institution in there. It's going to just save us a bit of money. We'll see if it was worth it or not. So you can see the Emperor demanded the lowlands back, and they probably got, I imagine he'll have to give up those provinces unless he wants to go to war. But France is also declaring war for that. So a bit of chaos going on there. So we got Berlin now. It saved us about 30 ducats. Nothing big, but probably worth it still. So burst institution, we're going to grab our tech up. Almost got our tech up twice. What I'd recommend doing here is instead of taking Diplo 5, we're going to grab Admin 5 and then get our first idea group, which is going to be Espionage. Now we're just going to straight focus our points and kind of ignore the tech for a bit. That's fine to do because they have yearly corruption buff here. So even though our tech might be unbalanced and we can get corruption from that, it's not going to matter because the idea kind of compensates for that. But let's grab our new units. And we could consider focusing Diplo if we want to get those ideas done, but we don't really need to. The important part is getting this state propaganda. That's going to give you negative 20% EE. So kind of just like you're able to take more land because of espionage. And that's why I like it as my first idea choice. Mostly just because of this one thing that it does here. You can see we're kind of closing in on this extra EE as well. Before we do any future wars, you might want to consider that. A nice event here, faceting. We're having Danzig, and it's just going to give you a pretty nice buff here. Let's grab Mill 6. And Mill 6 to 5 is the biggest advantage in the game, meaning that if you're fighting against someone that's Mill 5 and you're 6, you're going to basically crush them. But now that we're kind of at a period of rest, we can actually kind of fix our armies up. And I like to do an army stack that is a 12-4. We can go ahead and get rid of the mercs now. We have 12-4. Though our force limit is 20, so we could consider getting a couple more guys. Although at Tech 7, we're going to add some cannons, so we might want to make sure we save a little room for that. Totally up to you guys, though. Going to continue to seize land when we can. Sum the diet and see which we want to do. That's fine. The one thing to consider when you have your crown land at 25% plus is that you could sell titles, which gives 10 loyalty, and then seize land. I like to keep my crown land above 20. So only do this if you have 25% plus crown land. I think it's a pretty good idea to do this for the money, but you don't have to. It's just totally up to you. But that can help us repay some of those loans we took for the institution. You, of course, want to keep your nation relatively out of debt if you can. So a couple things we want to look at here is you can kind of see our AE is kind of starting to cool off. So we're kind of wasting the opportunity if we don't attack soon. There's no AE cooling off on these areas. It's at 0. And the same thing can be said for over here. So we kind of want to look to attack when we get to that point. So we're going to turn our armies back on. Let's activate our 4th and just kind of get ready to go to a war. We also occasionally want to check our autonomy. Having lower autonomy is good. So anytime we can lower that, I would recommend it. If you don't want to fight the rebels, then it's fine to not do that. So we're going to look around and look at wars we can do. I believe this war is pretty easy before, so it looks pretty easy. You just go ahead and declare this war. And for this event here, I recommend the top option. Sometimes there's a PU involved, and I still would select the top option because you get permanent stab cost and chance of air. Our stability did lower, so let's try to keep that at 1. The reason we want it at 1 is 1 gives you the opportunity for prosperity. You have to have at least 1 stability to have the chance of prosperity, and the chance depends on your ruler traits. So mine is 50% a month, so really solid. And we did get rebels here, and we know what's going to happen here because we weren't prepared for the rebels, that they're going to get that extra separatism. We can't really stop it. If there was a fort nearby, that would stop it, but in our case, there's not. So just giving that as an example of the kind of the consequences of this. You'll notice it would decay in 1491, and now it's going to increase that to 1501. So definitely something you want to keep on top of. I made a mistake there. And we can get our first age ability, and of course we're going to go for the Justified Wars for the AE impact. These rebels might even cause more problems. They're going to make more rebels there. So it was a bit of a mistake for me not to deal with the rebels before the war started, but that is a-okay. Of course, mistakes like this are going to happen. But now it kind of gives me a reminder, like, hey, I need to be a little bit more attentive to my rebels. But we can go ahead and end these wars. I'm just going to try to get some prestige. I don't really want to go back, so I'll be okay with getting 12 prestige instead of the 17. Not a big deal. Again, we're not going to do Diplo ideas. We're just focusing straight for the idea. And let's go ahead and fully annex that guy. Looks good. And be careful that you don't get too many forts, because they're 1 ducat a month. Just keep that in mind. You want to definitely have some forts to protect your nation, but don't go overboard. So we're just going to have to deal with our rebels for a little bit. And again, we're not very aggressive there. That was only 1 province. We would want to look to go to another war. And we could look for some more allies since we don't really have anyone to help us in the war at the moment, because Austria won't help. So in my case, we'll just go to the diplomacy tab and we'll look at the alliance tab, kind of look at what would be a good option. We can see Sweden, Denmark could be good. Hungary could be good. Burgundy could be good. I don't know if Burgundy's independent. Yeah, we don't really... Maybe Burgundy's not so good because he's not really doing so hot. So let's look at allying to Denmark. We will need to curry favors with Denmark if we wanted to help. So before we declare any wars, we want to deal with our rebels once again. I could ally to Muscovy here as well if I wanted to fight Poland. It just depends kind of like what you want to do in your campaign. So I'm just focusing on rebels at the moment. Again, I'd recommend dealing with rebels before a war. As in, in my case, you saw that I ran into a little bit of an issue because I didn't do that. A lot of people like to focus admin because they have to core a lot of stuff. Then some people like to focus military. It just kind of depends on what you need in your game. Although I suppose I will focus admin just because I know I want to eventually get my next idea group, which is going to be probably an admin idea group. Admin 6, and we can go ahead and seize land. Again, we're not over 25, so I don't want to be selling my titles yet, anything like that. We can get out of debt, which is always a good place to be. And our inflation's getting a little bit high if we want to consider lowering that. Go ahead and give that a tick. So we got a mission done here. Oh, I accidentally got the emperorship. I guess that's okay. Yeah, it wasn't intentional, but I got the emperorship here. It's not a big deal. It's something you can go for, but I'm not really going to do anything with the HRE. I'm just going to kind of, benefit from the extra manpower and maybe a little bit of extra money. But other than that, I'm not really going to do much. One advantage of this is that Austria will be more helpful as an ally, and we might consider attacking somebody like Bohemia or someone a bit larger now. Poland is going to be our friend now. We've been waiting for this for a while, so we can re-ally to Poland. Generally, after like 10, 15 years, he'll be willing to do this. And we're just going to continue going through our espionage ideas, getting those wrapped up. You can see now that Austria will help us fight Lubeck. That's a pretty profitable war. And I want to show you guys an example of some bad decisions you can make. So I'm not going to co-belligerate, and I'm going to show you guys what it would look like if we decided to take those provinces anyways. For a tier 3 reform, I like to do the expanded royal court for the reform progress growth. And if you do have rebels we accidentally didn't catch that 100%, we can harsh treat. It's not ideal to do this because it would kind of is a waste of points, but something to consider if you don't want to get those extra long years of separatism. So I'm going to show you guys an example of what it would look like if we took a province non-co-belligerated. So you can see we have this kind of red flag, meaning they're not co-belligerated. But let's say I did want to take their province. So for example, we can take this. You can see this will cause us 22 aggressive expansion, which is very, very high. But it is something to consider. For example, let's say this guy was allied to like an England, and we don't want to have to fight England to take the province. Then there are times when this can be valuable in that case. This is just something that you kind of have to weigh in your own game. I generally don't like to do it because it's going to make it slow down our conquest overall. But again, that's totally up to you guys. So in this case, I probably would just go for some prestige. Though remember that if you call an ally in, they split the prestige depending on the participation, so it won't be quite as effective. So again, Hamburg, we're just going to make end rivalries, maybe some war reps money. You can see we're almost at 100 prestige, so that's kind of what we want to be sitting at. So we got a breach here, but I wanted to demonstrate like what would happen if you tried to assault a larger fort like this, just to show you guys. It can be really rough. You can see we just like lost a ton of men, so you don't want to do that. Let's grab our tech to 7. Of course, that means cannons, and I would recommend trying to get cannons straight away. I like to build 4 cannons to turn my stack into a nice 12-4-4. It makes an even 20, which I really like. So we can go ahead and just make this guy, he doesn't really have any rivals, but we can try to do warp trade for our money, get a little bit of prestige. And then we can just look to fully annex this guy, because we really haven't taken land in a while. You can see we get 40 AE, but there's no coalition possible, so we're not too concerned. Always take money. So you can see here, since we're above our 25% crown land, like I mentioned earlier, we go ahead and sell titles and then seize land. And since we're out of debt and kind of extra floating money, we can look to start building some churches or workshops. And I usually just look through and see which is the most value. We'll go ahead and build some of those. Always good to have a bit better economy. Once again, we're just going to check our autonomy, see where that can be lowered. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I just want to give you guys kind of an intro to how I would play Brandenburg. Of course, you're just going to try to continue to expand and grow, and eventually you'll be able to fight bigger targets as your army grows. The takeaways I want you to have from this is the HRE is a aggressive expansion based region, so you have to really play this mini game where you're kind of like, okay, I want my aggressive expansion to be cooling off, but I don't want it to get too high. So you kind of always want to have some aggressive expansion, but just not too much. Beyond that, we want to make sure we're constantly lowering autonomy, and then we're constantly seizing land and maybe selling titles if we're above 25. Those are the three things that I would say are going to be great to focus on for a newer player. Let me know if you guys enjoy this type of video. It's something that I'm trying out. I usually do more advanced guides. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great one.